In this lesson, we'll continue to learn about some basic color schemes. Okay, now in the last lesson, we learned about color harmony. And colors that have harmony are colors that work well together. They're pleasing to our eye. And we talked about the importance of using colors that harmonize well in your projects. And we actually looked at sort of a starting point for choosing these colors that harmonize using some basic color schemes. And all these color schemes were using the 12 segments on our color wheel here. And this is the same color wheel we've been talking about all through this course. So let me go ahead and just hide this color wheel, and we'll continue talking about some color schemes. Now, in the last lesson, we left off with a complementary color scheme, being one where the two colors are exact opposites on our color wheel. Let's go ahead and talk about sort of a variation of this color scheme, being a clashing color scheme. Now, the word clashing sort of carries some negative connotations, but that's not always the case. We just have to be a little more careful when using colors that clash. These clashing colors can be very assertive and very aggressive, so we just need to be a little more careful when using these. Let's talk about some ways we can avoid overwhelming clashes with our colors and just use sort of a buffer in placing these colors into our project. So let's just zoom in here on our examples, our swatches here. And the first way that we can avoid unintentional clashing of these two colors is to use a buffer. Now, if we were going to use this green and this violet at full saturation, that's pretty dominant, pretty aggressive, and we wouldn't want to use those right next to each other. So we could separate those with a buffer being maybe a lot of white space, or a gray tone, or even black can be used as a buffer to separate those. So by using this buffer, it's really going to ease the aggressiveness of these two colors. Now, a second way we can avoid unintentional clashing of these two colors is to use them in different proportions. Now, if we were to choose, say, this yellow green as our dominant hue, we could use that in smaller proportions around our layout or around our project, and we can balance that out by using several different tints, shades, or tones of this violet color. So if we were going to use this green right here, maybe we use some darker tones in here with our grays to balance that out, and we really have more of these violet colors in our layout, and really just using this as an accent color almost. Now, one other way that we can avoid unintentional clashing of these two hues is to use different values. Now, remember, the values are affected by adding either adding black to it, or we could add white to it to reduce the saturation of the color. So let's just say we wanted to use some really light greens. Maybe we use a lot of white mixed in with this yellow green to create some nice light colors in here, and then we balance that out by using some darker purples, using just a variety of values between the two hues, really to ease sort of that aggressive nature of these clashing colors. Now, these are clashing hues. Let's go ahead and move on, and we'll talk about the next color scheme here. Our next color scheme is going to be also similar to a complementary, but it's actually called a split complementary color scheme. Now, the split complementary color scheme uses three different hues, or three different colors, off our color wheel. So we know that this green right here, its complement is actually going to be primary red, and that's going to sit right here. Now, a split complementary is going to use the two hues on either side of one of the color's complements. So if that red is the complement of this green, we're going to choose the hues on either side of that to make our split complementary color scheme here. Now, using these three hues, we could actually develop a color palette that looks something similar to this one right here. Now, again, these three hues are pretty dominant. They're full of a lot of energy, but we can go ahead and we can pull some of these back as necessary by either adding white, adding black, or adding gray to the hues, sort of to tone them down just a little bit. Let's go ahead and just zoom out here, and we'll move on and talk about the next color scheme. Our next color scheme is actually going to be called analogous. Now, an analogous color scheme uses three hues that sit right next to each other on our color wheel. So in this analogous color scheme, we've got our pure primary yellow, we've got sort of a yellow-green, and then we've got our secondary color, our green here. Now, this particular analogous color scheme would actually maybe be useful if we were working on a project that had sort of a nature theme to it. Maybe it had a very outdoors theme. So let's just go ahead and zoom in here and we'll take a look at these color swatches, and you can see here just a nice variety of sort of organic colors working here. So you can see how using analogous colors can really create sort of a theme for your project. Let's just go ahead and zoom out and we'll take a look at one more color scheme here. Our next color scheme is actually we've got two more color schemes. And we'll go ahead and look at this one first. This is the monochromatic color scheme. Now this color scheme would use only one color on our color wheel, and it's going to use different tints, shades, and tones of that color. Now, one color on our color wheel may sound sort of limiting, but really by using tints, shades, and tones of that color, we can really create a nice vast array of color options for us. Now, we can also use monochromatic color schemes to really set a mood for a project. Now, if we were wanting, say, a Valentine invitation or something like that, maybe we're working with a monochromatic red or a red-blue color here. And we're creating a nice variety of colors to work with using just that monochromatic color scheme. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on and talk about one more color scheme here. Now, we've talked about monochromatic, so let's go ahead and hide that, and we'll talk about a neutral color scheme. Now, a neutral color scheme is going to use a color that has been neutralized. Now, this color that we use here in this example is just going to be this orange color. This is going to be our secondary color, orange, and we're going to actually neutralize that color one of two ways. We can either add black to this color to neutralize it, as seen right here on the left, or we can add this color's complement to it and mix it in some amount to neutralize the color as well. And as you can see here in this example on the right, we've added in its complement, which is our primary blue over here, and we've created sort of a similar result here. If you look at these two colors we've created, they're actually pretty close. So in neutralizing this color in one of these two ways, you can really develop a variety of tints, shades, and tones of this new color. Now again, this new color isn't going to exist on our color wheel anywhere because it's been neutralized. These neutral colors are actually pretty common in looking at browns or beiges in a project that may need sort of those colors. This is a really common way of creating a palette of earth tones. So this is going to be our neutral color scheme. Now, in this lesson, we have looked at 5 more color schemes as really a good starting point for us in choosing colors that harmonize. Now, at this point, I'd like to just go ahead and encourage you to look around for some businesses or even make up a business of your own, and let's just try choosing a color scheme for that business based on their needs. Say it's a fast food restaurant. Maybe you want to assign a new color palette to that restaurant. While you're doing this, go ahead and look to these basic color schemes as sort of a guide in choosing your colors, and then come back, and in the next lesson, we'll talk a little bit about color psychology.